Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Soccer for Us. I am Bart, and I know it's been a long time since we have chatted, but there has been a lot of U.S. soccer competition going on since then. So on this episode, we're going to try to recap all four of the friendlies that the U.S. men's and women's teams played this month of June. And to tackle this feat is a man who is currently trying to get his daughter to become the next Alex Morgan or the next Ali Krieger. I haven't decided which one she's going for yet. It's Thomas, aka US Keeper.
Hey Bart, how's it going? Yeah, excited to start talk about these matches, and yeah, we'll see about my daughter. It's weather getting warmer. It's a little more challenging to get any great touches
Yeah,
uh, during the day. So we'll see what we can, how the summer weather impacts that. So it's all good.
it is definitely getting warm. For those of you who don't know, again, I am in Atlanta. It is heating up literally here. The Argentina team bus was parked outside the hotel that is next to my office building today. I passed it on the way home or on the way back from lunch and waited about 20 minutes and did not see any players. So after a while, I just said, okay, I'm done. And when I walked out after work, it was still there and had not left. So who knows if they were actually doing anything today, but they are in the city of Atlanta, which means that Copa America is quickly coming upon us. But before that, we need to talk about these friendlies that the U.S. women and men's national teams played. So first, let's talk about the women's friendly since they happened first. And I think, if I can be candid, sparked a little bit more joy and a lot more optimism than the men's friendlies did.
Yeah, it's a I don't know. I was very excited to see, what Emma Hayes was going to do with these friendlies, and pretty quick turnarounds too, right? In that, so it was very exciting, really good rosters, some young names in them. So I think it was, you know, I don't know, optimistic and excited just to see what she's going to how she's going to run things out.
Yeah, obviously, this was the first time that Emma had been with the women's national team. She's obviously been kind of coaching in the background, if you will, before this, but now she's finally the coach. She was on the ground giving instructions. So the first couple, I guess, training sessions seem to be basically a whole training camp. So a lot of instilling of systems and philosophies. And she cautioned us before the first friendly that, it would be a little incomplete, if you will. But the first friendly against South Korea was a 4-0 win. And to me was a good start because you just saw a difference in how the team was playing versus how it had been playing under Vlatko and Anofsky.
Yeah, I felt there was a little bit more energy and excitement from the group heading into this, and again, I think they're ready to move forward, right? And I think that's part of it. And
Yeah.
they've been waiting a year pretty much since the hire, and
Mm.
for them to finally have a coach in house and to be part of it is important because it's tough. Some of these players, I mean, they're all these players are now right. They're fighting for the Olympics. And that's a smaller roster,
Yep.
and they have to make impressions.
Well, yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. The last time they had a real coach was in August when Vlatko was still the coach. Then he was let go after a disappointing World Cup down under. So we're talking 10 months really without a full-time manager in charge of this team. Twyla Kilgore was a good steward, if you will. I thought she did okay. I don't want to give her a lot of credit because she just did what she was supposed to do. But now you have Emma in charge, and to your point, players understanding the true urgency to compete for that Olympic roster. Let's talk real quickly about this first game. Again, it was a 4-0 win. The starting lineup was a pretty strong lineup. The only real player that I would say is probably not in your best 11 is Jane Campbell, who started in goal. The back line was Emily Fox, Naomi Gurma, Jenna Neiswanger, Tuna Davidson. And your midfield three were Coffee Haran and Katarina Macario making an appearance for the first time starting in 2 years. And then your front three were Trinity Rodman, Mallory, Swanson, and Sophia Smith. In some combination, they moved around a lot, which again was kind of a nice thing to see from Emma. Um, Thomas, in your opinion, the starting lineup, again, other than Campbell and goal, I feel like this is probably the best 11 the U.S. can put out there right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I up front, I love the Sophia Smith Mallory Swanson combination with Rodman. I mean, I think there's Rodman. She hasn't been having the great international season so far. So, but I think that's a great combination. A lot of speed, and to your point, they were mixing things up, right? That's
Yeah.
That's like it's a refreshing to see that, right? Because I think those players are interchangeable, and when you do that, you really provide a different look, and you're not predictable in terms of what's being expected out there. So it's a great. They have a great trio up there. So I'm excited to really see what that can do as they have the chance to just be thrown out there together.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that when we break down the next friendly against South Korea, but you definitely see the difference between when Smith is your center forward versus when Alex Morgan is your center forward. They're just very different players. And to your point, Smith and Swanson interchange. Macario can step up and be a striker. Rodman provides width, but is also very capable of coming inside. So it is nice to see. And then, I mean, shoot, you had times Lindsey Horan stepping forward as well. Let's talk about a couple of the important moments of the game. I think it's fair to say that the first 30 minutes were a lot of players thinking a little bit. And finally, in the 34th minute, we get the first goal of the Emma Hayes era. Mallory Swanson gets the first goal. She dominated this game, 2 goals, 1 assist. But again, I think it was a little slow, but I was okay with that. It wasn't, let me rephrase. It wasn't slow. It was not fluid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it seemed like there definitely were erring on the side of like not the side of caution. That's not really the right word, but like they're almost like a little hesitant to really you know go out there and kind of impress in terms of like creativity, right? Because they're all on
Yes.
they're all on the under the microscope
Yeah.
of Emma Hayes. So they don't want to like be the first one to concede a goal, make a mistake or whatever. And so like that's kind of a again, it's a transition of that sort of thing. But you know what? It's a good thing, right? These players are going to be out there saying, "Hey, I got to give it all. I can't make
Yeah.
a mistake, right? I can't do these things because guess what? I'm not guaranteed anything." And I think that's the kind of the important thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later and for other coaches. But that sort of thing is really where um, it's going to make this national team even better, I
Yeah.
think. And so,
Well, and let's break that a little bit down because I mean, you alluded to the Greg Berhalter issues, which we'll talk about in the second half of this podcast. But even though it was hesitant to be super creative and break out of that system, because again, and I understand this, it's a friendly, so your job is to try to execute the philosophies in the system in live action, right? Like that's the whole point of these friendlies. It wasn't indecisive. It was thinking, the first time you've really played in the system, so you have to think about where you're going to pass that next ball, maybe where that next run is coming. But it was still intentional. It was still it still looks good. You just could tell that the players were thinking a little bit because this is the first time they've had to play in live action the Emma Hayes system. But the goal comes from a wonderful, it's a good passing sequence that then felt a little slow, but immediately changed pace. And you had Smith, Swanson combining with each other at the top of the box, and Swanson slots at home. So again, it was to me a good example of the type of play we've been wanting to see from this team, where you have speed. Like Mal Swanson's able to score this goal because she's just straight up faster than the South Korea backline, but she's able to utilize technical skill with Sophia Smith to create gaps in the defense where she can run and score.
yeah, it's a great combination, together, and it's nice to see. And to your point earlier, Alex Morgan just doesn't. I don't know if she just doesn't have that speed, doesn't have that I don't know, but we're not seeing it from her. Again, she's getting older.
Certainly not
She's got
anymore. Yeah.
right. So, and we'll get into that, I'm sure later. But like, yeah, it was just a nice sequence once they break through on that, and yeah, and that's nice. It was nice to see because you know Mallory Swanson is a massive part of this group.
Yeah. Yeah, she is. And then 4 minutes later, Tanner Davidson gets her first of 2 goals. Um, I think for me, the important thing here is we scored off set pieces in this game, which has been a little weird for the U.S. women to not be scoring off of set pieces regularly. That's always been something that this team has been good at. So for Davidson to score a headed goal, that to me signifies that we're refocusing on trying to win those battles.
Yeah, it's a great point because you're right. You think back to it like it was definitely kind of something that was missing a little bit from a consistency standpoint. We'd get a few here and there, but like they were kind of known for doing that. And it's nice to see a defender get the goal too, right? I mean,
Yeah,
because again, their strikers aren't all that tall, so you're not, you don't have an Abby Wambach in there,
right.
to bang her in. So you gotta, rely maybe on some of your defenders to, Germa or in this case Davidson to kind of,
Yeah.
elevate and get that ball and up
Yeah.
high and put it in.
Well, and you remember really, they scored 3 against Vietnam. The only goal they scored after that was Lindsey Horan's header on a corner kick
Right.
against Netherlands. So, yes, they were able to score up a set piece there, but when you consider that against Netherlands, Portugal, and Sweden, they had, I feel like, 8 million corner kicks and only scored off of 1. That's the type of thing that you do want to see an improvement on. And Emma brought in a set piece coach. Hopefully that is something that actually makes an impact. Davison, like I said, got 2 goals. She got 1 in the 48th minute, and then Swanson got her second in the 74th minute. So for me, I just look at this and go, you had 2 goals on either side of the half. You had 2 goals scored from, 4 goals scored in kind of different ways. Not all of them looking exactly the same, which is kind of good. And just a good start to the Emma Hayes era. I mean, a 4-0 win against a South Korea team that is at least competent. It makes you feel good to start with a new coach.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's not a 7-0 win, which is fine. You need to have some competition. You need to have some adversity, but you also need to build confidence too. So that's of scheduling it. I think it was the right. I think it's the right opponent to schedule for this window and especially for the Emma Hayes era.
Moving on to a 3-0 win on a rainy night. It looked a little slow at the beginning, and that's probably because they had a different lineup in this game. The starting lineup was Casey Murphy in goal. The back line was Casey Kruger. Sam Staub getting her first start after getting her first cap in the last game. Emily Sonnet, Jenna Neiswanger. The midfield trio was Haran, Albert, Lavelle, and the front three was Dunn, Morgan, and Shaw. So a very different lineup. Some of those players might be considered first choice given the available players. Some of them probably choice 1B, if you will. I'll put Lavelle and Shaw into that category of like, well, you're not going to tell me that Lavelle and Shaw aren't a starter, but also do they start over some of the other players? But specifically, you had Alex Morgan, Crystal Dunn, Corbin Albert, who were, when you look at impactful players, the attacking play had to go through them. Dunn does get a goal. She looked good on the wing. I think that's probably the biggest, I guess, roster shock from this group was that Crystal Dunn is an attacker. But you could just tell that it wasn't the same energy and the same tempo on the field with this particular front five.
Yeah, it definitely had a weird feel to it. They didn't overly feel the continuity there. It wasn't great with that group. You definitely had some some regular starters in there, but like just the mix and combination of them just didn't really feel great. I'm fine seeing it. This is what you got to do with these matches. You got to see the different players and see how they slot in with one another. I mean, look, there's some pretty good quality here. So, I think that's, the takeaway from this. I mean, I don't be overly critical of that piece of it because they just haven't been some of these players haven't really played with one another, and so
Yeah.
I think Emma just wants to see them, how they partner with each other, and also again, see audition for the Olympics. How many of these players can play in different positions? I mean, I think Crystal Dunn's a good example of a player that can probably play just about any
She's
position.
probably got 3 positions in her bag for sure. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's part of the reason for that, to see where she slots in on that, because she's kind of some respects a little bit of a fringe player, but she can play 3 spots
Yeah.
on the left side. I
Yeah.
maybe hard to pass up on her.
Oh, and you saw Emily Sonnet as a center back, kind of the role that she's, I guess, actually plays, but well, recently she's been a defensive midfielder for Seattle. Anyway, she plays a lot of positions. Center back is probably one that she's been played the most at on the club level. But like you said with Crystal Dunn, it's testing her in that position to see if she actually can perform, to test that versatility before making a final Olympics roster decision. And those things are important because with 18 players plus a couple alternates, you're going to need players who can play multiple positions. And you do want to make sure they can actually do well at those positions.
Yeah, there's short turnarounds. I mean, there's just a number of logistical things that you have to make sure that you're able to do that. I mean, I think maybe part of the reason for that, how close those matches were scheduled, is probably in sync to what they'll see at the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Here's a completely different roster, right? How we're going to do, well, for the most part, like there's a few players that overlap the rosters, but how does it
Yeah.
compare? How can we turn around? Can this roster still produce with this group together? Maybe not. Maybe move a piece here or there, right? In that, because it's just a different tournament than you see at a World Cup.
A big thing I wanted to talk about was Sam Staub. She gets her first cap in the first friendly, but she starts in this game. And this is the first time we've really seen a new center back introduced to the pool since Gurma back in 2022. And I'm not saying that center back has necessarily been a problematic area, but it's been an area where you should have tried new faces when you had some injuries, and you didn't, right? You had Dahlkemper and Davidson out for the entire 2023 cycle. So you went with Cook basically the entirety of 2022. Alana Cook was playing. In fact, it was mainly Cook starting and Gurma and Sauerbrunn kind of rotating around her. Cook played more minutes in 2022 than I think any other player. Doesn't get played at the World Cup at all. It's not that, again, this is a weak position, because Naomi Gurma to me is your starter, but it is a position where you need to find out what your depth options are and how deep you are. So we saw Ava Gaetino come in a little bit in the what was that? Yeah, April friendlies, or April She Believes Cup. Now you're seeing Sam Staub. So we're finally trying out new center backs. To me, that is a nice change.
Yeah, I'm to your point, I'm a little disappointed it's taken this long. I mean, she's 27 years old. I mean, geez, for her just to be getting her first caps,
Yeah.
to me, that's crazy. Like,
And I think it's not because she's like some world beating center back. That's not my point. But she's been a good NWSL player for her entire career, which is, almost half a decade at this point. It's one of those where why weren't we looking for depth at this position sooner?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that's on the last coaching administration there. I just think that I think it's it's a comfortable situation, right? We see a Berhalter all the time, right? Players are in certain stock with them, and they just don't get the opportunities to do that or to impress, right? And so, cycles are not overly long, so you've got to find your core group in there, and she just did not find a way to break in or impress, Vlatko, and now she's getting that chance, and so hopefully she can impress and provide the depth there, because I think we've Davidson and Gurma, I think that's a pretty good combo back there, and I think I think they're going to be tough to break up, so I think
yeah
it's a good just a good thing.
Real quick, they get the goal in the 13th minute. Crystal Dunn with a tap in off of, I don't know, defensive breakdown from South Korea. I don't know why none of their players got a foot to it to clear it. So good to see Dunn scoring as a striker, as a forward, I should say. Uh, Also in the first half, Casey Murphy in the 30th minute, a big save on a free kick on from South Korea. I think that is an important thing to reflect on. Is Casey Murphy started this game, Jane Campbell started the first game, and if you're, assuming that Alyssa Nair is healthy for the Olympics, these two are fighting for that second goalkeeper spot, and you got to evaluate them both by what you saw. And I don't know what you thought, but to me, Murphy looked good.
Yeah, I was very impressed with with that save, but just how she did it out there working. I mean, she's next in line in my opinion. She's the number two, but I think again, if Nair starts having little nagging injuries here, we know we have a keeper that's going to be able to come in and be able to, you know, fit the role and be able to be comfortable that in there that she's going to, be able to make a tough shot. Because that was a great save on that set piece. It was, it was a great read on that. She was all over it.
We get to halftime, still up 1-0. Second half starts just as slow, and again, it's just you can tell when Alex Morgan is in the game, and I'm not bashing Alex Morgan, but the reality is she's just not as dynamic as she used to be. And I think her style of play as a striker doesn't fit with the rest of the players that are around her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree. She kind of seems lost out there a little bit. She's definitely, her
detached, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, I think her overall skill is a little inconsistent, right? There's like, maybe not even a half step, but she's just off a little bit, like with just her timing and just the touches and that sort of thing in general. I mean, maybe she finds it, and she's gonna have to kind of find that role if she's gonna continue, in this cycle. I think she can. I think she can adjust. I think Emma's gonna have to put her in positions to succeed. You know, as a spot starter at this point, I could, that's fine. I think she may be better served coming off the bench for the team, but I think it's, it'll be determined to see what, what role she plays, and again, in my opinion, she's on that bubble for the Olympics.
Well, in the 62nd minute, we had 4 subs come in: Swanson, Smith, Rodman, and Coffey. And literally within 5 minutes, we've got a goal. Is that directly related? Yeah, I'll say that it was. These 4 come in, especially the Swanson, Smith, Rodman attacking trio is way more dynamic. But then you add Sam Coffey, who comes on for Haran, who I don't think was bad, but Coffey, as a more defensive midfielder, is just better at transitioning from defense to offense, better at linking the back line to the front line. And I think that also was really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it was, flip of the switch, right? I mean, it didn't take long for them
literally.
To create opportunities and get that goal.
Yeah, they had a chance, I think, even before they scored in the 67th minute. It was Sophia Smith. Then we had a couple more subs come in. One of those, Lily Johannes, who makes her first appearance for the U.S. women's national team. She's been in camps before. She was part of the She Believes roster, did not play. This does not tie her to the U.S. For one, she's only 17, so she still has plenty of time to make that decision. But it is good to see that she signaled intent to play for the U.S. women. I don't think we needed to rush her into the team, and I don't think we have. I think getting 20 minutes against South Korea is good, and it allowed her, you're up 2-0, it allowed her to express herself as a player freely. And my God, she's fun as hell to watch.
Yeah, that was that, she's very smooth. I mean, you wouldn't
smooth.
You wouldn't know she's 16, right? Like she's very composed, very smooth out there.
Yeah.
Knows the game, knows the positioning. It was it was a treat to watch. Her. And again, she was with a good group of players out there. So
yes.
She's not being left on her own out there to kind of fend for herself, which is good. I think you have to do that when you're introducing players into that. I think I think
Yeah.
it was all well timed and well done. I thought into the
Yeah.
introduction.
Well, and her first appearance, her first game, she gets a goal, 82nd minute. I think she, I'll argue that she kind of creates the goal or sets up the goal scoring play with, some ball retention and passing. And then the ball just kind of across into the box somehow finds her way to her. And she finishes it smoothly. Again, it was a kind of sloppy, what do they call it in cricket? A sticky wicket or whatever that term is, because apparently we're all cricket fans here in the United States after we beat Pakistan. Um, a good goal, though, a good finish. And look, finishing is a skill. It's a little bit luck. It's a little bit random. This one snuck through several defenders and the goalkeeper, but she put the ball in the back of the net in her first appearance for the U.S. women. Um, that's awesome. And I think the response from the players, both on the field and on social media after, showed how excited they are to have her in the team.
Yeah, I thought it's a composed spot, right? She's inside the penalty area, right on the 6 yard line area, and she has to be able to because it's not a great ball. She's got to just she's got to reposition herself, and she just was very composed in that. And I think again, composure around the goal. I don't care what age you are, is there is some skill involved in that, and it was great to see that she was able to finish that.
Well, it finishes 3-0. Again, I think this game was not, if you were to compare the games, this one not as impressive, but I think the reason is because you saw a clear drop off from the starting 11 that you had in game one versus the starting 11 you had in game two. That said, my question is, did players who started show anything that they can bring to the Olympics, right? Um, it wasn't all good, but there were players who I think can show that they can produce and maybe need to be considered in that 18-player roster for the Olympics.
Yeah, I think they showed enough. I think they
Okay.
showed enough, but I think again, I think in July they have another window, and Emma's
Yep.
going to hopefully she interchanges some of these players to give them an opportunity to play with what she might
Yeah.
consider the A group, because that again said earlier that first team was pretty much
Yeah.
the starting lineup you'll probably expect to see in any must-win type of match. But I think you have to kind of integrate them a little bit, give them an opportunity to show where they can slot in that, because um, this 27 players, 26 players in this
Yeah.
roster. I think
Yeah. You had the 23 plus like 3 or 4 practice players, and it's
yeah,
like, where do they fit in? And yeah, all these things. Yeah.
yeah. I think assuming everyone's healthy, your group is here, and so it's just a matter of
Mm.
chess pieces in terms of who's going to fit where, who can play multiple positions, and and do that. So it's a good start. It's a good start.
Yeah. I do, if I'm going to nitpick some players who I don't know if they're making that trip. Um, as much as I want to support the Georgia girl, I don't know if Emily Sonnet's on that plane right now. Um, Corbin Albert compared to Lily Johannes is going to be an interesting question. Corbin has had way more time with the national team. Um, she definitely plays a different style and position from Lily, but she's not quite a 6. She's not quite an 8. She's kind of one of those swing midfielders who will play on a pivot, but is just kind of a ball winner. That's going to be an interesting question. I think you're also looking at, how does Casey Kruger maybe find her way in? Um, do you bring Kruger, Neiswanger, Fox, and Dunn? These are the questions you're going to have to start asking. And this is the downside of having 18 players. It's going to be hard. And honestly, if I could say one of my big takeaways from this window is that outside of Gurma and Haran, maybe Smith, I'm not, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Swanson is probably a lock too. Um, I don't necessarily want to say that Rodman's a lock. I know that sounds crazy, but with only 18 players, you have to be so picky, and you just have so few positions or spots for each position.
Yeah, I think when you start, I think it's tough when you start talking about essentially the teenagers on this in this group. Shaw and Johannes. It's it's tough because I think you want to take at least one of these players. I mean, I lean towards Shaw only because she's had more time with the national team. And
I'm personally taking Shaw.
Right.
I think Jaden Shaw has proven for this national team, especially when she starts, she scores. But I have to have her on the roster. She can play attacking mid, she can play left wing. I'm taking her. But is she a starter? I don't know if she's a starter right now.
Yeah, I think just getting the logistical time piece of it, I think she'll get maybe one start in the group stage, probably the middle match, and get her chances. And yeah, I think then it goes from the teenagers to like the players that are in their early to mid 30s, right? Like what do you do with that, right? So in terms of that piece of it, how do you blend enough of the experience with some of the some of the youth talent into this group? Get that roster on 18, because 18 is tight. It's as tight as it gets. It's crazy to me that.
And the alternates aren't really part of the roster either. Like, they're alternates, so you can bring them, but they're not really part of the roster.
Right. They're just. I think my understanding is if it's there for injury replacements.
Yeah.
And if you replace, you're out.
Yeah. They haven't expanded it like they did in 2021, but in the 2020 Olympics. So it's tough. That to me is going to be. There are going to be some hard decisions, and there's going to be some favorites that are left off. And I know that women's soccer Twitter is going to react very well to that, I'm sure. But looking forward, also, I think you made a good point about Casey Murphy, where I'm not sure she's won the starting spot over Nair, but I agree that she has proven why she's the next in line.
Yeah, and I just wonder how you approach it, right? Like at some point you have to start giving the next in line an opportunity. Is this the tournament that it's done in? It's again, it's hard to see what Nair has done already this year, in these penalty shootouts and everything she's done to say, yeah, you've lost your spot for this tournament, right? So that's hard. But again, with a new manager, I mean, she can kind of justify it differently, right? As opposed to someone that has been there for maybe long term. So there's not a lot of stock that's been earned by any of these players, right? So that keeps them on their toes to say, hey, I got to be great with my club. I got to be great in the opportunities I get within that, I'm on the national team to go ahead and impress Emma Hayes now, because all eyes are, she's watching these games and watching these girls out there. So
well, looking forward for this team as well. You've got the two friendlies in July against Mexico and Costa Rica. I think that will be the roster for the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. I think the roster isn't due until after those friendlies, but I don't think they plan on. I think they want to have that roster set and basically have the training camp of the 18 plus whatever they're allowed for that July friendly window, and then you fly to Paris. You have, well, I guess not Paris. You're in Marseille and Nice, but you start off with Zambia. You have Germany in the middle game and Australia this last game. So it's tough. Zambia is probably the winnable game. Germany and Australia are very, very good. Germany is ranked ahead of us right now in the women's rankings as we keep falling down. It's not an easy group to get out of, but that makes these roster decisions all the more important. Let's take a quick pause, and we'll come back and talk about the men's national team and their two friendlies. right, we talked about the women's friendlies in June. Now time to talk about the men's friendlies in June. As we alluded to, not as fun. U.S. played both Colombia and Brazil, two teams that they are almost assuredly going to face in the knockout rounds of Copa America. The first friendly against Colombia, not very good. The second friendly against Brazil, much better. But right now, if you were to evaluate this team, it would probably be one of not very high expectations. And I think that would be that's the sad part about these friendlies is it didn't make me feel better about this team.
Yeah, they really frustrate me because you cannot come into this window and not give your all, right? I think this goes back to the coach, right? These players will show up and play. Like, you're not good enough to just show up and turn it on. Okay, you're not good enough to do that. So I guess the problem is this, right? Like, this is why I didn't like scheduling friendlies with these two opponents, because they happen to be opponents you'll likely play the knockout stage. And so in doing that, you don't want to give away anything, but you also want to kind of go out there and try something. But it's kind of you're kind of in a little bit of a dance in terms of how you're doing that. Because if you're getting out of the group, I mean, I'd be shocked if Brazil and Colombia don't come out of the other group. How do you play it? Like, and so that comes into play when you do that, because are you getting the best from Colombia? Like, did they spoil it for themselves? Or did the U.S. just kind of let it get away? False sense of security if they play again. Like, it's just this weird dynamic of the whole thing. But the just the lack of urgency, the lack of energy, the lack of just you know what I mean. It was frustrating because then against Brazil you saw kind of a completely different team. So
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it because it's a rebound. But again, on the Brazil side, what were they doing? What were they showing? So it's just that
Yeah.
weird. Like, I don't think we learned anything. Like,
I would agree.
Other than the fact that the U.S. is not really providing any urgency with this group right now. And again, that's a second cycle coaches, man. I tell you,
Yep.
they get complacent, these players, right? Because most of them kind of have their spots in the starting lineup, and others, are fighting for little things, but there's just not a lot of urgency there, and I hate it. It makes me.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think the fallacy of second cycle coaches is that the ones who stick around for the second cycle are successful because they were super successful in the first cycle. And to be blunt, Greg Berhalter was not super successful in his first cycle. I mean, he did better than I think we expected at the beginning, but at the same time, he came in when we were in complete shambles, and all he did was say, oh well, we're gonna move on to young players, which was not like a bold take; it was a necessity at that point in time, and he still hung on to some older players way too long. I mean, kind of still is to some extent. I'm with you. I just didn't learn anything new outside of like Joe Scally wasn't terrible. And I also agree that when it comes to scheduling this friendlies, while Brazil and Colombia are big names that you got, that's great. The fact that you are directly tied to them in the knockout rounds does give me pause of like, okay, well, how hard are you gonna play, or what type of offensive patterns are you going to put out there? Those types of things. Is that why you just went with Joe Scally at right back? Maybe you've been training with, Tim Weah at right back. I don't know, because you don't necessarily want to put that stuff on tape. It was just weird. I mean, look, you could have scheduled from CONMEBOL, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Venezuela. All those teams are in Copa America who need warm-up matches, who you're not going to be facing in the knockouts, at least until the final, which, you can't control that. Scheduling Brazil and Colombia was weird. Like, I almost would have rather them schedule Paraguay, who you're probably not likely to see in the knockouts because they would have to beat Costa Rica, Colombia, and Brazil. But I don't know. It was weird. It was even worse because the team came out so flat against Colombia. And I think the biggest disappointment from that and I'd like to hear if you agree with this, wasn't that we lost. And I do want to say this. Had we lost to Colombia, that wouldn't have been terrible. Like I would have gone, well, yeah, okay, Colombia's pretty good. They're on a what I feel like a 20 match win streak, or at least unbeaten in 20, I think is the stat. Um, it happens. Look, it's a friendly. Not everything is controllable, but what was problematic is you looked so disinterested in playing the game, or you just looked so flat. You looked like you were just out there to kick a ball around with your friends. There was no urgency. There was no fight. There was no bite. Is that what bothered you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I know it's only a friendly. Like that's the problem. It's only a friendly for these players, right? They want to play in the big tournaments, and so here's the problem. You got to be able to ramp things up when you have these opportunities, right? Don't miss the opportunity, and I think they missed it, right? I think they missed it, and so it's on the coach, it's on the players. They all hold a piece of the responsibility, but that's also the coach saying, hey, I'm going to pump you up. I'm going to get you guys prepared for, to do this, but we're going to try different things too. So it's okay if we lose by trying different things, and they didn't try different things, right?
No, it was the same damn shit we've been seeing, and I'm with you. Like there wasn't anything new. We didn't learn anything. It wasn't oh wow, we actually tried a little bit of different this formation. It was the same thing we've been seeing, but with less aggression, less tempo, and less urgency.
Right, and it's so predictable. Like it's so predictable. That's part of the problem, right? Again, maybe Greg blows us away, but like he changes it up. But like I think Greg can play the way he wants to play against Bolivia and Panama, and should win those matches. And then maybe you do some against Uruguay. I don't know, but like he's too predictable. Like it's crazy. I don't care about the possession. I don't care about pass. The number of passes. I mean, completions are nice. Obviously, you want to have that piece of it, but he's so obsessed with some of these metrics that don't really matter in the scope of this sort of thing. At this point, I've said it before. I'll continue saying it. I don't care how they win. I just want them to win. So figure that out. And he's really limiting the creativity of the players and kind of putting them in a box a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this over and over and over again, but he doesn't even try anything. I was hoping to see a 3-back situation out there where try it, try it, see it work. You have an opportunity to do that because you don't have Dest, right? So maybe try it for a half, try it for 30 minutes, let's see it to start the match, and it's not working, then you kind of pull out of it, right? Because these results don't matter, and I think sometimes he gets too focused on trying to get the result sometimes, and then kind of losing the meaning of what we're kind of trying to do here. Greg's always screwed up on that. He just can't help himself.
Yep. Well, I think the other thing is like you said, there wasn't anything new. I mean, the lineup it was going to be, Turner and goal, Scally, Richards, Ream, and Robinson across the back line. Nothing different there. I mean, you just slotted in Scally for Dest. Midfield trio, McKinney, Johnny, Reyna. I think people said Johnny wasn't great. I thought he was fine. But it wasn't, again, that was like, well, yeah, that's what you're going to do. And the front three of Weah, Ballack, and Pulisic. Now, part of this is, as we've talked about a lot, the starting lineup does kind of write itself. And that's can be good and bad. The problem is just that, like, there were a couple positions where you could have tried something a little different. Or you had a couple of positions, specifically defensive midfielder and right back, where, hey, we're going to see if you can execute the way that the player in front of you who's injured or unavailable. Maybe, hey, let's see if you can execute somewhere close to that level before we try something different. And the problem was everyone around them sucked. So it's kind of hard to judge if Johnny was bad because, well, Richards, Ream gave the ball away every time I feel like they had an opportunity to.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I mean, I thought Johnny did fine. I don't think he got the full. Again, this is where I need to see a little bit more of Johnny with this group.
Sure, absolutely. He's yet to have a great performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's part of it. He needs to be integrated in this group. That's the challenge, right? And so, but to your point, it's the expected lineup. Okay, it's not a must-win match. It's let's try. maybe try something different. I don't know. I mean,
Or if you're not going to try something different, you need to come out there and not give up a goal in the 6th minute because you're turned off defensively.
right. Yeah,
You know,
that early goal just set the tone for the whole thing, and it was, I think, and they just again, they just didn't come out with any energy or urgency, and it showed.
I do want to say that I don't think the first half was as shambolic as some people made it out to be. Yes, we were down 2-0. I understand that. But the goals came off of like actual individual errors. I think it's fair to say that. You had a goal because Jedi Robinson tackled a ball that ended up putting it right into the line of an attacker who wouldn't have gotten there had he not made a play on the ball. I don't know what he was doing there. And then Tim Ream, who's old, and Gio Reyna, who's not, I guess, the most defensively in tune player, are unable to react fast enough. Then the second goal comes because you give up a corner kick because Tim Ream makes a bad error in possession, and then you can't clear a corner kick. And as much as you want to blame Matt Turner, the guy scored an overhead bicycle kick those are hard to save. We'll talk about Matt Turner after this game a little bit, but in those two moments, you were bad. And that's my takeaway mostly from this game is you can't have bad moments against good teams. They're going to punish you. We've seen this time and time again. We rarely punish bad teams when they have bad moments. But we sure as hell get punished when we have bad moments. But overall, it wasn't terrible. We even come out in the second half and we get a goal. I mean, the goal for Tim Weah, it kind of came a little bit out of nowhere, especially for Tim Weah, who had a not very good game. But hey, you're back in it. And that's the thing that you want to see from a team going into a tournament. And even when you bring subs in, that they're now hungry and smell that blood in the water to go get a result. I look back to the 2010 World Cup and we were down 2-0 at halftime. And what does Landon Donovan do, despite not having great hair at the moment? He comes out and smashes a goal home within the first 5 minutes. I've yet to see someone truly do that in a game against a team that's not named Mexico. And that's what's concerning.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I question the next gear for them, right? What's the next gear? Do they have it? Right.
And that is okay. We're gonna jump to Brazil because that is the point that a lot of people made about the Brazil team is they weren't quite playing in their top gear. Fine, whatever, you can say that against Brazil. They were only playing at 8 out of 10. Well, Brazil at 8 out of 10 is still damn good. The U.S. doesn't have lower gears they can get into and expect to win games. We just don't.
Yeah,
we're not at that level.
Right. They can't turn when we talk about the women a lot with this, right? With this current transition, well, we'll just turn it on in the second half. We'll turn it on after the group stage. Well, they used to have a player pool that could do that. Okay. The men have never had that. Okay. They've got to be able to produce always, and they've got to be able to come out always and have that mindset. Because if they don't, then we see a 5-1 result, right?
Exactly.
Right. And so again, here's the thing: like the time between these friendlies and when Copa America starts, it's 10, 11 days. Like go out, put your best effort out there, right? Like, fine, don't give things away. That's fine, but you can still try because we saw it against Brazil, right? And you didn't see it against Colombia. So what are they trying to say? Well, we can do it when you want to do it. Well, you need to do it all the time because you don't have that luxury to do that. Yeah. I'm sorry, like. These opportunities you're not going to have a lot of them heading into the World Cup. You're just not. World Cup qualifying is going to dominate everything. Deal with it, and figure it out how you're going to do that and motivate these players. Again, hence why, even more so, why you don't bring Greg Berhalter back, because you don't have to qualify, right? So you can just be like, we'll sit back and do it, right? How are you going to build up that sort of thing, right? When you only have limited opportunities to do that. And to me, it's just lazy. It's lazy on the federation. It's lazy on the coaches. It's lazy on the players.
Lazy, lack of urgency. Those are the things that keep coming. Especially the lack of urgency is just the term that was the most obvious after this game. I mentioned, we get the goal. We're down 2-1. But it seemed like as soon as we started making subs, and this is the problem, is again the starting 11 took them a while to get their I guess, I don't know, their engines running. Subs came on, looked terrible. Cameron Carter-Vickers' first touch wasn't even a touch because it went under his foot, And then you bring in all the subs, and do you give up goals? And you're down 3-1 in the 77th minute because after you've subbed and they've subbed, their subs are scoring, our subs are getting run past. Those are the things that are problematic, right? Like even your substitutes aren't coming in going, oh, this is a sub in this game, isn't looking at this as an opportunity to really take the chance to prove to Greg that I need to be a starter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of disturbing to me. Like there was no real. Again, it was if it could have gotten worse, it did get worse, right? Like none of them.
And it did.
Yeah,
it did because you gave up 2 goals in like the last 5 minutes off of
right.
Bad turnovers.
Yeah, and you can't have that. Like these players have to be able to come in and lock it down, right? And or in this case, try to make a comeback, try to get creative, try to do something right in there. And Pepe's a good example of a player who's come in and done that, right? And again, not blame Pepe specifically, but he's a player that come off the bench and be able to do something. And so that's what you expect for your bench players, especially when you're down in a match.
Well, post-match, Greg Berhalter, he was not nice to the players in the press conference. He seemed visibly upset with them. And I think to an extent, like, I'm glad to see that, right? As an Atlanta United fan, I've too often heard my coach after a loss go, no, the players played great. We had a lot of fight and we did this, we did that. So it is good to see him be visibly upset that the team lost 5-1 in a friendly. However, dude, whose job is it to make sure they're, quote, respecting the game? Whose job is it to make sure that they are ready to play? Whose job is it to make sure that they are feeling the urgency, feeling the fire lit under their asses to come out and prove that they belong in this squad for the Copa America roster?
Yeah, it was disgusting on Greg's part. Like, good managers don't throw again, you want to throw your players under the bus behind closed doors or do whatever, fine. A good manager just says, yep, I didn't prepare them, whatever. You provide lip service for it, right? He took some blame on that.
You can be mad at the team for not getting up for the game while also saying, but I understand that I probably didn't put that into their heads how meaningful of a match this really was. Yeah, something like that. You can take the blame while also getting mad at them.
For sure. And Greg didn't do that. And again, I don't know how that sets in the locker room in general with the players. I can't imagine that, that would be, something that I would.
Well, I'm sure they heard it too, so it's not like he's saying.
Oh no, right,
to them
right.
So I think from that standpoint, but
yeah, but like to throw them under the bus and that sort of thing in general, I that can't set well with anyone. So, but again, honestly, I don't. As much as I don't like it, it's Greg. He does.
That's Greg.
He's just not polished. He's not experienced. Just another reason why he hadn't been brought back. I mean, he just continues to prove us right,
yeah.
over and over.
It's just over. You had the opportunity to move on, and I'm not gonna sit here and tell you Greg Berhalter is a terrible coach or a soccer terrorist like some dumbasses on Twitter do. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to, because that's factually incorrect. But the reality is he's not a guy who has shown that he can motivate his teams to achieve more than what they're supposed to. He never did that at Columbus. He never did that in Sweden. He doesn't have a history of doing that. He creates a style of play that lulls the opponents to sleep, lulls your team to sleep. He's not a very imaginative coach. He doesn't even really create fun attacking movements with his so-called possession style of play. You had a chance, and I'm not knocking what he did in the 2022 cycle. He helped transition a very young group of players into a team that now has World Cup experience. But Greg himself has not evolved. And the fact that he is not evolving, he's not growing, he's not changing as a coach, means this team is not going to. We haven't seen anything functionally different outside of putting Gio Reyna in the midfield and getting Flo Balogun into the lineup. That's the only 2 changes that we've really seen.
Right.
And those aren't on Greg.
Right. And the players are evolving more than, a lot more than Greg is. And again, to your point, like there's no, I don't see any way he could do that. You know what I mean? Even if he was partnered with great managers, right? That's
right.
Yeah, it's yeah.
But hey, we tied Brazil 1-1. And that's going to be the frustrating part here is that they're going to look at this and say, well, you tied Brazil 1-1. Um, we still gave up an early goal because of, and I'll blame Matt Turner, but also just blame the fact that we keep stupidly trying to play out of the back when I'm not saying you kick it long every time, but that was forced because the whole shtick that Greg sticks to is nope, you got to pass that out of the back. You got to pass that out of the back. And sometimes, especially against a team like Brazil, you need to unbalance them. And they weren't unbalanced. Turner made a bad play. Brazil scores. Sure, you get an equalizer. Pulisic with a very good free kick and a good, play and set piece. But again, I didn't learn anything. I learned that this team can, if they want to, play well against good teams. But even then, it is just a friendly. And the results of friendlies aren't super important. It's the performance that matters in a friendly. And while it was a better performance, you still have this Jekyll and Hyde window that concerns you.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure how much to add to it, and that's the really frustrating part of it. You guys played a better match, but what does that mean? What was Brazil showing? Like I'm sure Brazil wasn't out full out there either, but like again we didn't really I will say from the match, and I don't know if it was part of just the opportunities they had. There were opportunities where they were taking shots further out, getting shots on frame. Like there was different. That was probably the thing in the first half that kind of excited me a little bit. It's like, hey, hey, a midfielder is taking a shot from distance. Holy crap! Like, you never see it.
Musa should have started the scoring in the 5th minute. That to be honest, is a goal that we've seen scored how many times because it hits the back of the goalkeeper and goes in.
Oh yeah, I mean that's almost guaranteed goal. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say unlucky. It just it just didn't get the right bounce on that. But I mean, to see him get that on frame was amazing. Like, and those are the things we want to see, right? Those are the different things. Those are things we're not expecting to see, right? Because they haven't done it consistently. Even against bad teams, they're not doing that sort of thing consistently. So I want to see that. And so, again,
what that indicated to me, and I think this is the thing that you are talking about, is that it set the tone, but the tone was, oh yeah, we're going to try to score this game. Because sometimes I feel like this team comes out and it's like, oh, we're going to go through the motions and it'll deliver a goal, as opposed to trying to make a goal happen. And that was what the Musa long shots, we saw it from Weah, we saw it from even Pulisic. That to me is just an indication of, oh, I'm going to take this opportunity to try to go make a goal happen.
Yeah, and I think we want to. We don't want to. We need to see more of that. We need to see. We're not going to build up play. Like, guess what? Get a couple goals. Get creative. Get different. Get these players. In situations again. Let's have some fun out there a little bit, right? Like Berhalter's system sucks.
Scoring bangers is fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, try those things, right? Because that's part of it too, right? These players have to be able to have an opportunity to be creative, not try to think, oh, it's just part of the system. Am I doing it right? Am I overthinking? Like sometimes, like against better opponents, maybe Turner doesn't just chip that ball in there. Maybe just blast it up the field. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's okay to do that. Especially against better quality teams, you have to be able to have a game plan for that. That's different than teams that that you can control the tactics.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about Matt Turner. 22nd minute, he has a really good save on Rodrigo on a ball over top that the defense clearly misreads. But talk to me about how you felt Matt Turner played this.
So Matt Turner, I mean, he definitely struggled in the first match. It's clear he's definitely knocking some rust off. He definitely has, his not playing for for club team, excuse me, is impacting his national team
Totally.
piece of it, right? But he knocked that rust off. The first goal, he got a little bit of a hand on it. The defender gets beat, whatever, I thought that was okay. He was in the right position. It's a good goal. The giveaway is where the problem is for me. Then he stands on his head. He's the reason they tied the match. Like, he found his way. He's a great shot stopper. We all know that, right? And he's probably the best one we have, and it's why he's in there. And so hopefully he continues knocking that rust off. He's got 2 very winnable matches before you play Uruguay, and you know, he's a worker. He's gonna work out there for you, and it's kind of does show at some point why these goalkeepers need to be playing consistently though
Yeah.
with their clubs,
A-
because
And it sucks because
yeah.
I want him to play consistently. And I also argue that the Nottingham Forest problems weren't all his fault either.
No, they weren't. That's the thing. And it's complex. People are very critical of Matt Turner. And so, and again, I think there's a combination of not knowing the history of U.S. keepers, right, in terms of what they went through. I'm trying to write a piece on this, but it's very challenging because there's a lot there that I need to unravel to
Mhm.
kind of like get that. Because again, most of these keepers started in their mid to later 20s with their clubs before they took the national #1 spot. Turner's a little bit different. Again, but he's kind of in line with it too a little bit.
I
So
mean, people forget that Tim Howard sat behind Casey Keller, you know? Brad Guzan had a chance, probably should have been the starter fully in the 2018 cycle. But, like, yeah, I mean, we've had a long history of good goalkeepers. And that has been the reason why we've been so able to punch above our weight. Matt Turner can give you that, in my opinion. But we just don't have a whole lot of great other goalkeepers right now.
yeah, the slew of the other ones right now are youth keepers. Who knows if they actually make it through? We've
Yeah.
seen some good ones come through, but I think Matt Turner, he just needs to get his reps in there, and he can show you what happened. He can show what he can do when he gets his reps right. And so, um, I'm comfortable with him there. I'm hoping for a big tournament from Matt. Get him a move to a spot where he's gonna own it. You know, maybe it's out of Premier League. Maybe get him into
Yeah.
Germany or Italy or something like that. That
I mean, even if it goes down to the championship, that's not the worst.
he's gonna get a little bit of better opportunity. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Um, let's move on from this because, again, I don't think we learned anything. We can talk about how bad the first performance was. We can talk about how the response was good. I think you and I would both agree that calling a pre-tournament friendly a wake-up call is a little bit weak from Greg because this team should have known what these friendlies were for, and that's to gear up for Copa America. That said, Copa America is next, and this is a unique opportunity for this team, not just to play in Copa America, but to have a true dry run of a major international tournament that you're going to be hosting. You get it in 2024, you're going to have it again in 2026. This is a unique opportunity for this team. And I think we're both concerned that we're not in a good position to actually take advantage of this opportunity, both on the field and off the field.
Yeah, it's they can't miss this opportunity, right? You can't miss it because there's so many similarities in some respect, but many differences. And I think what you're going to see typically, you have you build into tournament, you set goals in the tournament, right? The goal is to you know get out of the group, and then it's to win your group, and then it's to knockout stage, all these different pieces, right, that get you deep into the tournament. We've seen the women do it, and they evolve within the tournament. Their schedule allows for that, right? It's going to allow for maybe Greg to try something different, which I don't think he's going to, but to build into it, right? So maybe put a couple different lineups out there, try some different things against teams that are beatable, and you should be win by multiple goals. If they can't, that's a different conversation we'll have to have. But and then you have an opportunity against the Uruguay in the final group stage match to be able to do that, right? You're gonna probably, in the World Cup, you're gonna have probably a pretty easy group with 48 teams in there that you should be able to win in a group, stage. You probably have one good opponent you'll go against, but yeah, this is the time, right? See what it's like. Let it rain down upon you. If get the jitters out now. You're gonna get big crowds, here for this, and
Kind of.
let's
Ticket
let
sales have been a little lax, but I blame CONMEBOL for pricing out like everyone.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they'll fill out enough. I mean, it's not
My 300 level, I bought 300 level tickets for the U.S. game here in Atlanta, and they were, after fees from Ticketmaster, $102 each.
Oh
And
wow,
That is way more expensive than I've ever seen for a FIFA World Cup match, for the record. So thanks, CONMEBOL. But that is also kind of the thing that, like, this is potentially a missed opportunity off the field. And I think that's can't be missed either, is you're going to have, I mean, I'm downtown. I work in downtown Atlanta. The Argentina team's staying next door to my office building. They saw the Argentina bus and they started lining up at like 2:00. I get off work at 4:30. People are still there. They haven't come out yet. There's going to be hype for a World Cup. There's hype for the Copa America. You need to be part of that hype. You need to be part of the energy and excitement going into the tournament, because you don't want to be a team like, I don't even know, like, even in 2022, you had Japan and Korea, who were relatively unknowns on the world stage, took advantage of hosting the tournament. 94, you took advantage of it. Hopefully you do that, but I don't see this team being able to take advantage of the off-field hype and use it to perform well on the field. And that is going to be a bigger miss, because if you're talking about the growth of the game in this country, you need your men's national team to also be good. No offense to the women, they have been great. But if you want this sport to truly grow in this country, you're going to need the men's national team to be legitimate threats in a tournament.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, they have to go out there and play at a high level, be awesome, and prove that they deserve to be here, right? Like, they qualify, but I mean deserve in terms of like, hey, this is one of the best teams in this tournament. No, maybe didn't win or whatever it is, but like deserve to be there. Like, just don't show
up. Be exciting at least.
Yeah, like do something to wow people, right? In general, you can do certain things and maybe not get the results you want, but they did it, man. They went out there, they battled, they went to overtime and lost in PKs, whatever it was, right? Like, and you can be okay with that result sometimes, over just like, yeah, they just got they lost 4-0, right? Well, they're a better team. Well, okay, but we can't do that anymore. Expectations need to be higher. We can't continue selling. Well, just get out of the group stage. Maybe get lucky and make it to the semifinal of this tournament. Like, they've done that before, right? We need to see better. We need to see more from this, right? And I think that's what fans want to see. I think that's what the federation needs to be holding this team to, holding the manager to, right? You have to have high standards, because there's too much money, and this is where the federation misses it, right? There's too much money in the game in the United States to not have quality performances at this Copa America. Yep. And at the World Cup, in this country. There's too much money. You can't just get to the group stage. You need to get further than you ever have gotten before, right? In a format of of this caliber, not 1930, right? 1934, whatever it was, where where they finished fourth. But that was a very different.
That is like talking about being in a Greek, the Greek empire. Like, it's not modern at all. Right. But yeah, that's the question that I just have for this team is, are you positioned to actually take advantage of this opportunity? Real quick, before we talk about our actual predictions, look, I think we all knew that the roster, when it came out before these friendlies, the 27-player roster, is going to essentially be the final roster. The only person who was cut was Tim Tillman. Josh Sargent is still here despite not training at all with the team, certainly not playing in either of these games. I will say that is a little unwise if you ask me, and I don't understand why Greg Berhalter is beholden to having Josh Sargent when you have Valerian Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, and Haji Wright on your roster, plus Tim Weah. Like, I think, to me, if the guy is not healthy, and yes, you can replace him up to 24 hours before the match starts, but is your replacement really Tim Tillman? I don't know. I felt like it's a wasted roster spot. Now, granted, there's 26 of them, so you're already getting 3 bonus guys, so whatever. But I don't know. It could have been used.
Who do you replace him with, though? Like,
I do think if you want to replace him with a striker, I would call it Brandon Vasquez.
Yeah, I don't think
you're healthy.
Right. I don't think if you replace him, I don't think you replace him with a striker. To your
And that's
point,
the other thing. I don't think you do either.
yeah.
But I don't know if I'm in love with Tim Tillman.
Oh no, I wouldn't
But I
replace him
agree.
with Tillman either.
You know, I don't know who else you would really call up that would be ready to go and help you. Because I look at like the Olympic roster, and there's not really a lot of guys on that U23 team that we're playing, which we're not going to talk about that because that is more sad stuff to talk about. There's not really a guy on that roster that I go, oh, they need to be up here. You know, maybe Kevin Paredes just to like give you some more options at both left back and left wing, but like he's not really going to be a difference maker. But that would be the only person. Again, I would call up someone not named Shaq Moore, but he's already on the roster, so that's not really.
Yeah.
I would just not have him here.
Yeah,
But
Juwan Jones.
it's a great
I'll
question.
say, yeah.
Yeah,
Jones,
I mean, I would have
yeah.
rather
I mean,
DeJuan Jones than Shaq Moore.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's done well with the team.
Yep.
He offers a lot more. So, I mean, that's to me.
I would have called up, and this is maybe the one guy who maybe from the U23s who could help, but you want him. I get why you're keeping him with the U23s. Is maybe Tanner Tessman, and that's a weird one because he hasn't really been a part of this senior team, but he plays a position that we kind of need some help in. He's clearly a leader for that U23 squad. You know, but I'm with you. Like, there's not like a no duh replacement if you don't have Josh Sargent, like especially if you're trying to find someone who's going to help you win Copa America.
Yeah, and I think as much as I'm critical of certain moves, I actually am okay with that because they've kind of built that little U23 team that's actually got some youth in it, right? Like they don't want to really, they do have their sights on that. So I think we have enough player pool to bring in other players that we don't have to pull from that necessarily that U23 core group. So I mean, we'll see, but they still do, they still can injury replacements up to 24 hours before the first match. So Sargent,
and clearly it's going to be Tim Tillman. Like that's what's probably going to happen is it's Tim Tillman. Whatever. I mean, again, there's not another player out there who's going to make you necessarily better. Like the potential Josh Sargent has to actually make you better. So hopefully he's healthy. That's all I can say. But it's also one of those where I'm like, again, we're talking about 24, 25, 26. At that point, I just hope none of those guys see the field anyway, because outside of Brazil, no one has that depth.
Right.
So let's make some predictions or at least set some standards. So I think we've gone back and forth about, for forever, the bare minimum for the U.S. has seemed to be just get out of the group. Is that the bare minimum? Is that the expectation, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, getting out of the group, yes, but I think but how they get out of the group, how they perform against Bolivia, how they perform against Panama, right? Like even Uruguay, like you've got to impress in those, right? You can lose matches and still impress, right? And shows, wow, unlucky here, that in general. They've got to, it's a tough road to the semifinal, but you know what? I think the team is quality enough where they could find a way to win against either opponent that we just saw in this, June window. So,
I mean, first off, I'll say that I'm still sticking to my thing that I would rather play Brazil. I think they are more beatable than Colombia right now. But to your point, I do not want this team to have anything to quote play for in that match against Uruguay. For one, Uruguay is playing very well right now. They are a good team. They might be better than us. They probably are better than us. But you also have two matches before that you need to be winning by a comfortable margin. And so if you go into the Uruguay game and you have 6 points and, at that point, it's pick your poison, Brazil or Colombia. I don't think it matters too much. Again, I would personally think that I'd rather play Brazil, but like, do you really want to play Brazil in the knockout rounds of a tournament? Probably not. Have your fate sealed by Uruguay.
Yeah, for sure. Because then I think you're allowed to try things against a team in general or rest players, right? You know what I mean? Like, but you can do these different things and say, look, our fate's our fate, right? We're going to play either one or both of them, if we're going to, go the distance, right? So it's, and we've seen them both. We kind of know what they are. So I think unfortunately, I don't think I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, look, the bare minimum is making it out of the group, but I think our expectations, and I'll speak for you, is have the group the advancement sealed by the second match, right? Like that second match, you beat Panama, you got 6 points, you're through. And to be blunt, Uruguay, Colombia, they're ranked around the US. So at that point, it's in theory, any given Sunday kind of mentality of why not us today? You can win that game. And again, even with Brazil, June 12th was only the second time in history we haven't lost to Brazil. You know, you feel like you can give me confidence that you can beat one of those teams. And I think, again, it just comes down to you take care of business. And I don't mean 1-0 on a 89th minute header. I mean 2-3-0. And I know that's hard, but like, come on now, y'all. It's Bolivia and Panama. The last time your A team played Panama in a competitive match here in the States, you beat them 5-1. Take care of business against Bolivia and Panama. Don't have business to take care of against Uruguay, and set yourself up to have that advancement already by the time you have to travel to Kansas City.
Yeah, leave no doubt
That's
about
my
it.
expectation.
Yeah, because 6 points should get you easily to the knockout.
It will. Absolutely, it will.
Typically 5 points is what you need, and four
But 5
can do
points
it.
means you have to do something against Uruguay on the final match day.
Right, exactly. So we don't want to be in that position, right? You have that opportunity. So to me, if they can't do that, then we have bigger issues, right? And I think we already have bigger issues, but that's we'll see how it plays out. I mean, that's the
my next, and then you move on, and I don't know about you, but like, look, you can't lose badly to these teams. You have to play well. You have to keep it tight. You have to give yourself a chance to win. If you lose in a penalty kick shootout, or if you lose 2-1 because of a great individual effort, or what, like, I'm not saying you have to win the damn tournament. I personally think you need to be making the semifinal because that's what you did in 2016. But I also understand that in 2016 you played Ecuador in the first round, and in this one you're going to have to play either Brazil or Colombia. Those are differences. But I just think it sucks that like we don't really have the confidence we can make the semifinal.
Yeah, and that's something crazy happens in that group, right? And again, anything's possible, but I don't think Paraguay or Costa Rica are gonna, shock anyone. But again, Costa Rica has, their most recent run in the World Cup, is, so who knows what can happen. So that's why that matches are played. But it's you can't sit there counting on those sorts of things to happen in general. And if they do, I still wouldn't expect Costa Rica or Paraguay to win the group, right? And because I don't expect the U.S. to win the group either.
I mean, you're hopeful that Paraguay or Costa Rica get a shock result against Colombia or Brazil, and that gets them enough to be a second place team. And maybe you win the group, and now you're playing one of them in the knockout rounds. But I don't know. So is your prediction 6 points in the group and a quarterfinal round loss?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's at this point, yes. I think the minimum is you got to get 6. If you can get 7, even better. Because then that means you put a good match on it with Uruguay, enough to hold them to it and get a point out of it. Yeah, I just don't think right now I'm seeing what I would have hoped to have seen, even just more something different, right, from this group against teams that you have to still try something, right? Maybe you saw a little bit more in Brazil, but it was kind of short-lived there. So yeah, that's the minimum. That's probably where we'll end up.
That's what I kind of predict as well. Is it's 6 points from the group, and anything less is going to be a real problem, to be honest.
Yeah, I would prefer to see a maximum amount of matches from the U.S. So meaning they get the semifinal, playing for the third place, result there. But we'll see. I'm hoping they grow and evolve during this tournament, like they absolutely have to dig down deep and get that big result, right, when it matters in the knockout stage.
All right, 2 quick questions before we get out of here. Who's your pick to win, and who is your dark horse?
Pick to win. I mean, I think the easy pick is probably say Argentina, but I'm not going with Argentina. I'm going to say Colombia.
Ooh,
is
okay.
Gonna win it. Yep. And my dark horse is and I guess the dark horse is to get out of the group, right? And I think Group B is where we're going to see that happen, right? I think we're going to see
Yeah, that's
one of
fair.
these Group B teams that's not expected. I think Mexico, um, you know, in that group, is the higher rated team. But I think you might see.
Mexico is that seeded team. You are
Yeah.
correct. They because they
So,
won the Gold Cup where we brought our our D team or whatever.
and maybe this is, my CONCACAF bias, but I'm going to say Jamaica actually figures it out
Hmm.
with the team that they have, and they find a way out of the group.
I okay, so your dark horse is Jamaica to get out of Group B.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay. I'm picking Argentina to win. I don't think Colombia can be my dark horse because I think they're probably also making the final. Like I think that is a fair bet. So my dark horse, I was also going to say someone from Group B, but my dark horse is Ecuador because I think playing at a neutral site, a true neutral site against Argentina may give them an advantage if they meet up in a semifinal. I think they're going to walk that Group B. Bless me. Walk the Group B, and then your Group A opponent. If you win that, is Canada, Chile, Peru. Peru's decent, but I don't know. I'm going with Ecuador as my dark horse because I think their path is easy to get to the final. All you got to do is have one good game against Argentina.
Yeah. No, I think I think the Group B is where it's at. I think probably at least three of those teams could make a run in there. Hopefully one of them's not Mexico, but yeah. So I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I've enjoyed the Euros, watching them so far, and can't wait till we have all day soccer, right? And
All day soccer. It is coming up very soon. It'll start really Friday, but Thursday, the kickoff for the Argentina game and the Copa America match is 8 p.m. So the U.S. plays Bolivia in the first match on June 23rd. That's a Sunday, 6 o'clock kickoff. Then they play Panama on Thursday, June 27th, another 6 p.m. kick, and close out the group stage at 9 p.m. on Monday, July 1st. Look, Copa America is fun. I think my biggest advice would just be to enjoy watching Copa America with some sort of vested interest, but watch the other teams and see how their fans care so passionately about their teams. And find it in yourself to do that for the U.S. men's national team.
this is only the 5th time they played in it, so hopefully it's a regular thing going forward.
I have a sneaking suspicion it will be more regular.
I think it has to be. I think you want to compete with the Euros.
I think CONMEBOL wants it too.
Right. There's too much money involved to not have other top nations in there. I mean, I'd like to see them have, and it ceases to be a Copa. Again, you can kind of say, okay, well, it's a Copa America of the Americas, right? You can sell that piece a little bit.
I think if you do a Copa Super America where like you invite the CONCACAF teams who do well in the Gold Cup the summer before, that can work. But yeah, I think I have a sneaking suspicion this will not be the last time in recent memory we see these this type of tournament. But yeah. All right. Well, Thomas, thank you for talking with me about all the U.S. teams that played over the past month. We have more to talk about coming up soon. We will do a group stage recap probably, as I will be busy hosting all the things for U.S. fans coming to Atlanta. But I appreciate you spending time with me this evening.
Thanks, Bart. Super pumped. And yeah, go U.S.
You can follow him on Twitter at USKeeper. You can follow me on Twitter at SoccerForUsPod. Make sure you subscribe to Soccer Down Here, now the SCH Network. We are a fully fledged soccer media network. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Bart. I'm out.